Hello, hello, hello. uh,
Howdy.
we, we thank you for checking in to this. Yes, this is our 101st episode. We are the three Black Pratt grads. We continue to be. At some other future date, we'll be known as something else, but that's yet to come. So, more news on that later. My name is Kenneth Nelson. I'm here. Joining me are my good friends Mark Skinner and Gregory Cleghorn. We're all graduates of the Fine Art program at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. And additionally, each one of us has decades of professional experience in various areas of the professional photography world. That's what we bring when we have these conversations. So, in this conversation, it has been captioned as my episode, so I have the opportunity to talk about or bring up a discussion. And in this discussion, the title of this episode is The One. I thought we'd talk about how
The
we'd like the
woman?
world, the one,
The
the
one. Oh, okay.
the one, ONE, the
Got it.
ONE, right?
All right,
How
all right.
we'd like the world to remember us. I've challenged us to come up with only one photograph that we'd like to represent us as our legacy in the forever after us. Now, granted, most photographers who have passed on are known for more than just a single image, but not many are known for hundreds, at least not to the general public. If I were to say Ansel Adams, you'd probably have a certain image in mind that you remember most immediately. If
No
I say
rise over
Go-
Pavan.
if I say Gordon Parks, you'd most likely come up honing on a famous image of his. And again, if I were to reference something like Steve McCurry, you'd probably think of his most famous image. So that's sort of what I'm trying to get at. It's that one image that you'll not only will be remembered by, but you will be appreciative of being remembered for that particular image. So with that in mind, I
Wait, wait,
challenged
wait, wait.
Greg to come up with an image.
Appreciative or appreciated? What are you trying to say there?
You will be,
Would something I would be appreciative if everybody remembered me
yes,
by that
yes,
image, or I would
yes.
appreciate, the people would be appreciated,
I think
Okay,
they're
all
one
right,
and the
I'll
same that
stop
you're,
you there.
you're getting at.
Oh man,
So
I need my eye drops, man. Now all of a sudden my eyes start to itch, and I don't know where my eye drops are. Okay, the one. See, that's kind of tough, because just like like a photographic, it's like the one of those channels they say everybody has a story, and you're or like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Everybody starts out somewhere and then they meet all their friends, like you guys. You guys are my friends that I meet along the way. And you have the adventure and then you become a different character and then you go back, so it's almost like a what's a quadruple tick? Like a triptych plus one. Never mind. So I guess if I was going to be, that was this is a tough call, Kenny. You did it again, doggone you. But I had a couple of shots that I was kind of indicative of my childhood. This kid with a, really interesting, looked like a painted face, um, kind of in a psych ward. But it was a cool shot. But it wouldn't let me use that one. Then there was another one that goodness, that I really liked, was probably, when you reach your comfort goal or whatever, because I started doing yoga and whatnot. The guy at the beach, doing this, striking a yoga pose in front of the water and the rocks, or, oceans crashing. But that's not really my life. So if I had to do the one, I would really have to, reluctant, difficulty, but I would have to choose this one because it's a shot in Brooklyn. This shot speaks to me on so many levels. You know, um, there's almost nothing worse, and being a kid, and like one of those, commercials that say kids are going to do what kids are going to do. So, not normally a problem, but when they get caught, they get stuck inside the house on a hot day and have to do nothing else to do but to look out the window. So, in the spirit of the triptych, I kind of feel all of these kids are me. The one looking right into the camera, like, I'm responsible. It looks like the eldest. I take the hit for this one, standing up, looking out for the others. The other one's looking up the block, looking for, what he could possibly be getting into had he not, you know, screwed up. and the one to the right, which is absolutely, that is so absolutely me, the dreamer, looking off into the future with that look, or future into space, with that look on his face, like, her. I love that look. And he's just, silhouetted in that dark space, but he's so pops forward that really, really, whether it was one picture that was kind of indicative of me, or of an image that I would want people to remember me by. Is that accurate, Ken?
That is accurate.
Okay, then I would have to say Kids in the Window in the Summer, Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And it's so funny that I took that. This was actually shot during my Pratt years. That I'm not exactly sure, beginning or end, but I think this was probably near graduation, because it really really talks to me. And then, um, looking forward and then looking back, as like a Navy journalist and doing a lot of photojournalism, and really enjoying, street photography, and uh, generated. What do you mean? Set, where you create an image, you add the elements and such. This one, if I were to make up an image, it would probably look like this. But I love that this was just a street capture, and these kids spoke to me in multiple levels. And this is the one I'd like to be remembered for. Yeah.
I
I
think it's a fine choice. Go ahead, Ken. You can go first.
okay. I think this is the most street photography esque photograph that represents a period in time, which is uh, the origins of street photography, because there's an aged essence to it, which harkens
What does
back to
that mean?
maybe
Age essence?
the image is faded. It's a warm tone paper. I'm not sure if you
Oh
scan.
no, it's a sepia toner. Sepia
It's a
toner.
sepia tone, so you scanned a sepia tone print.
Uh, to mount it here, but it's originally Ilford paper, the heavy stuff, and I toned it in selenium. Not selenium. I wish I had toned it in selenium. That was my favorite. But sepia, just a sepia toner, and then I scanned the print.
Right. So you scan the print. So
Yeah.
right. So that sepia tone harkens back to a specific era. It ages the image
Oh,
automatically. It ages the image,
is
right?
that
So
bad?
no, it's not a bad thing. It just does, because
Because it's
brownish
that
tone papers
the
are
brown tone.
right, right. So that gives that aged essence, which then gives that essence of kids from the 50s or 60s looking out the window. That's the first thing
Okay.
I think of when I look at this, right? I'm looking at
Okay.
the windowsill. I'm looking at the woodenness, the wooden frames of the window, and they're
Uh-huh.
not vinyl, right? So,
Right.
right. So those are things that I'm
It's a
looking at that
different.
gives it an aged essence. And the curtain, I mean, those
Yeah. That.
curtains.
Yeah. They don't. They don't make those curtains.
Right.
Those are
They
all
don't
old.
make those curtains. So all those things come together to me to harken back to the times of the origins of street photography from my perspective.
Okay.
Whoever's been born later will have a totally different perspective on it, maybe. But
Yeah.
that's the gist I get at it when I think of it, and I think it's a fine example of that. And your your the way you spoke about it, referencing the three people as you, are kind of interesting as well.
Hmm.
To see yourself in the three is
Yeah.
intriguing, as you speak about it yourself, but knowing that anybody else who sees this is not going to have that kind of uh, input on it. They're not going to see
Right.
that, but that's okay.
Yeah. So what do you see when you see it? Just technical street photography genre? What do you see? I'm always curious.
Is
I
that
always
me you're
ask
asking, or
people.
Mark?
Both of you. Yeah, I don't care. You're
Mark,
talking.
you go. You go ahead, Mark. Ooh, Mark
Did we lose
is.
them?
I think Mark
Okay.
is frozen.
I would say that you don't necessarily have to tone it. I think it would hold up as a black and white image without the tone. I'd love to see if this was cropped or not, and see how much of this is the full frame, since that was one of the aesthetics. However, all of the technical information I just mentioned aside, I think your capture is a great one, and I think not only does it talk about a specific time, either late '70s or early '80s, I guess based on the haircut and the aging of the wooden frame. I would say that the fact that these children are, for the most part, not self-conscious about the camera, with the exception of the one who understands that there is a photographer. It's still as much of an abstraction or something that's rare enough in his life where he's interested, but it doesn't look like a way to harm. And I think he's just looking at you, looking at them, and it's almost as if he has no opinion whatsoever. And in fact, I don't think you realize how rare cameras were in the 70s or 80s. You had to be someone who was very much interested in photography to walk around with a camera and take pictures. It's not like today where everyone has to have a camera on them almost at all times just to communicate with the people they need to speak to regularly. So
Right.
a different time in that way. The fact that the children aren't bugging for the camera because they want to be in your selfie or photo bomb, two words that didn't exist at that time, the selfie or the photo bomb. It was just the very formal
Oh.
self. It's a very interesting time that's been captured. So I think if this is the photograph that you want to represent you photographically throughout time, I think it's a fine choice. It's a wonderful choice, particularly if this is the genre that you prefer to work in. It's great.
I just like, I mean, the kid with the Bermuda. Thank you for your input, though, but the kid with the Bermuda, the triangle of the kids. I have a thing for windows and triptychs. That's a
Well,
anyway.
I think
Past, present,
I think
future. Stuff like that.
yeah, but I think it would be really rare to find a little boy who was so lost in his own thoughts as the child on the left of our what we see with his hands. Very rarely do you see someone with their head in their hands comfortably like that now, because everyone's so self-conscious. Even a little boy would pretty much sort of pose. I mean, I photographed a lot of toddlers, and even they, by the time they get to photographer, have had so many photographs done by their parents that
Right.
they, for the most part, they kind of understand what's happening.
Well, this was the. I know Ken probably has used this technique, but I saw them. Kind of did that. Had that. Take your breath away or gasp. When I saw it, I was like, and then I turned my back to them. Dug the camera out, checked the setting, did a light reading of the air, and then kind of turned back slowly and let them do what they were doing, so that they wouldn't pay much attention to me. But once I brought the camera up to my eye, the center guy, the young boy, he was on it. But but they were bummed to be indoors. I could tell that they wanted to be outside, and it was just a moment. I was glad that they stayed there. That I was able to kind of be as camouflaged as I could on you guys know Ninth Street. That street is very busy. The train station and the bus station right there. Um, but that was like a block away from Smith and Ninth, Ken. And
Okay, got it.
I I just got a kick out of that, And I do like the say what you like about or don't like about street shooting. There's a spontaneity about moments, and I really like capturing moments, and I feel like I caught a moment here. So
You did. You
that's
did.
if I.
Not only a moment
Really,
that speaks to the moment itself, but outside it references the external parts outside the frame. It
Hmm.
indicates that
Hmm.
something else outside the frame is going on, and
Yeah,
we want to know what it is, but we can't look that way. But we
we
have
can
these
only.
emotions and these visions of these three people to give an idea of
Uh,
what they're interested in outside the frame.
yeah,
So
you can only
that's very
imagine.
yeah.
Okay.
right. You,
All
you
right.
sort of you've addressed in some way all four walls of the room between the camera and the subject, right? one child looking towards the right, one child's looking sort of up in space towards the left, one child is looking directly at you, and then you're looking at them. So
Mm,
it encapsulates all four sides of that space in between you and the subject.
mm.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
gentlemen,
All
let's
right. Moving right along. Thanks,
yeah,
Capella.
we have to move on because we're just a
Sorry, I
little
didn't
bit.
mean to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, and we've got Mark to go now.
Okay, now in actuality, these may be three photographs as a triptych, but the answer really is the photograph on the left of me on set.
Where is that?
That's at my old home in New Jersey. You can see a
Huh.
Dynalite. You can see a Dynalite flash head on the upper right hand corner. See a Dynalite flash head with a angle reducer light modifier on the left, right next to my head, and another light stand. This was an assignment I had for a company. They gave me this crystal as a test. They said, "Go take photos of this and then send this back to us, and we will see if we want to hire you." By the time I got home and I set up a set and I started to photograph, I told them that they'd have it by tomorrow. Oh, don't worry about it, forget it. So I took my pictures anyway. And that's the only reason why I have those two photos on the right, is so you can kind of see very quickly, without any retouching or anything, what the two images that I started to work on for them. Uh, Truthfully, by the time I got to the second image with the candles being lit, I'd already spoken to them, and they'd already said, "Forget it, don't." But I'd like to be known as someone who is a working photographer, who was a working photographer. And for me, uh, being in the studio, most of the time I find myself on location, but really being in the studio was part of the greatest part of the job for me. And I just really like, using the lights to actually uh, describe photographically people and books. And that's really it. So this was a photograph that my wife took. Uh, and I would be fine if photographically I was remembered uh, on set using a black card to reflect black into the crystal candlesticks. I'll be, because I photographed in so many genres. I mean, at this point, I photographed as many headshots as I have sporting events, as other things. It's just I couldn't just say I'm specifically, and I know it's probably suicide to say this. I'm not. I can't just say I'm specifically, uh, one type of photographer, with the exception of I really do like utilizing strobe light, artificial light, shaping it, modifying it to render people.
Yeah, I think, well, I think this is one of those cases where you will never be forgotten in the after, because there will always be a visual representation of your physicality. So not only that, but within the frame of just a single frame itself, you will be remembered as such, because this is really just that. And I think it's kind of an intriguing, because I think it it incorporates itself within many many sort of type publications. So if you were to use this as a marketing material for your website, it works in that. If you had a book, it would work in that. It has many uses as a behind the scenes type of imagery. And it's funny because I don't know if behind the scenes worked very well prior to the digital realm. But it seems to be behind the scenes now is part and parcel of the marketing packet. So it's kind of nice to see that.
I think it has to do with the rendering capability of the sensors. All the black areas used to go from properly illuminated to blocked up black, just nothing in the density.
Hmm.
you know, for the negatives, there was nothing in the negatives, and when you stop positives, it would just get muddy really quickly. I think now when we have open shadows in
Uh-huh.
the hypersensitive uh, sensors, and then also with the software that gives people the ability to sort of raise the shadows a little bit. I think there's far more dynamic range than there used to be.
Yeah. Were you intentionally wearing black that day, or is that for the
Yeah,
photograph, or that?
you just don't want to be in a situation where you're collecting orange back into the.
Okay.
That is so true.
I mean,
I was
most
reading about there's some street shooter actually that always wore a white T-shirt just in case he got close to his subject. He would be his own reflector.
PBO's field card, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
a lot of people they vary that. It's like they either wear black or they wear white.
Yeah.
Well,
This
that's a
was
theater
just
thing. Theater and photographers usually always wear black so they don't have arbitrary light bouncing around the studio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Good looking out. All right. And of course, since that leaves moi as the anchor person for this, and I want to share that I think, and I don't know if I've shared this image with either of you at all. I think I may have shown it at some point in time in the history
Ooh,
of myself. I don't know if you've ever seen this from me.
I've seen it.
There are
Coney
just
Island House.
yeah, there are just some images that are uh, yeah. There are many. There are when I was trying to gather images for this episode, there were three images that I rarely ever show for reasons of I'm just, overthinking things in my head. So I've decided to dispense with that and actually bring this one up because if there's anything, I hope I'm remembered for this image, and I hope people remember this image for its evocative nature, for its contrasting tones, its contrasting ethnic things going on there as well. So all those things that are brought to bear when one sees this image, I hope it brings out some emotion, and that's the key. So if it brings that emotion to you, whether it's positive or negative, that's a good thing. So if you remember me by this, and you remember feeling some type of emotion in a very strong way, I think I've succeeded.
well, I
This
think
for me. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
no, I was gonna say I think Greg spoke a lot about leading lines previously, and I think in this particular image there are a lot of
Yeah.
leading lines that really just lead you to his shoulder, and even though he's showing extreme strength, there's a softness to his shoulder. Even though there's a softness to her legs and her physicality, there's obviously a great deal of strength being used to place herself in that position. And even if you have any doubts, the fact that she's holding herself up and he's holding her too shows you that it's a balance between strength and softness. So I think
Wow. You've never had one of those swing from the chandelier nights, have you, Mark? Goodness gracious. Um, did for me, did Mark freeze? Are you done, bro?
no, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, Ken. It's kind of interesting that you put it the way you put it, um, because I don't know what other folks know of you, but I knew you were passionate about photography, but you are like so reserved, and I didn't, and going through the time of this show, learned that you're very cerebral also, and like when you said, you're a lot, you overthink things or whatever. You have this one of those minds that is so ordered, when you can take, at Macy's, take in at jobs from around the world and funnel them through where they're supposed to. That's saying a lot. But because you're that way, you're to me, and I don't know, probably a whole bunch of folks that know you, you seem very reserved. And then to look at this picture, which is so evocative, it's sexual, it's dynamic. It's like you're saying, the leading line. Well, in my head, those leading lines don't lead to his arm, but that's for me. But there's like this explosion of energy. There's just such sexual tension in here that's like well done. And then the framing is tight, so there's like really no place for you to go other than to be face to face with this passionate capture of something that was just frenetic in motion and dance and expression and feeling. And trust, strength. This is like one of those nights where, yeah, you wake up the next day and, clothing is on the ceiling, on the chandelier, and you're like, okay, what happened here? So I'd say I like it. I like it. I wouldn't first think that you did it. If Mark did it, then I'd be really mind blown. But you doing this, okay, because there's just something so reserved about you that you capturing this image and all the energy and the tension that's going on here. And he looks like he's gonna bite her in her thigh, which is so cool. Anyway, but yeah, it's and then for you to say that you want to be remembered by this image, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I ain't McDonald's, but I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done. I'm jigging it. I like your entire uh Coney Island house, and I'd say if anybody out there paying attention, look up Kenneth Nelson Photography's Coney Island house. You'll be treated, really. That's all I got. Except for subscribe and hit the button so you get reminders when our new show comes out.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. I appreciate everyone joining us. Any closing remarks from you, Mark, about the overall show today?
I think it is a very difficult thing to pick out one photograph that you've taken that represents your legacy, particularly if you've worked in a number of genres and you are interested in a number of genres. That's difficult. But if you know what, say, your style is, even if you're just a studio photographer and you don't do street at all, and you
Oh, he froze. Hey, I got an idea. Go ahead, Mark. Still breaking up.
Yeah, we're losing Mark.
You know what I would like?
Studio. So it's
Mark, hold on for just a second. We're losing you. We're losing your feed.
You know what I'd really like?
Yeah.
This same. Is it my turn next time?
Go ahead, Greg. We'll go back to Mark.
Okay. All right. We pick 5 images, and we give them to the other guys and let them pick the one that they think is representative of you. Instead of, because we, like Marcus was saying, we've shot so much, it's hard to, of all that scope, to narrow it down to one image. Thank you for this one. You did it again. I think, even though I don't like it, this was a good exercise, Ken. Thank you. That's it. Mark,
Yeah.
did we lose him?
Good idea. Mark, let's
No.
see if you're back.
Hopefully I am back. Am I back?
Go ahead.
No, I see you guys.
Go ahead.
I can
Go
hear
ahead.
you
Go
guys.
ahead, Mark.
No. All I was going to say, it's very difficult to do that exercise without and to be able to select an image that you feel is representative of you in terms of your work if you've done a variety of work. That's really it.
Right. But that was the exercise. I mean, I don't think you have to be. You could be a master of many trades, but I think when we are challenged to boil it down to one singular thing, that is the essence of our being, then I think we can do it. Yeah, it's difficult because it's not difficult picking the one, it's difficult between picking the multiples. But that's the exercise. The exercise is
Right.
to boil it down to one.
If you're working in a
No,
specific genre,
Mark. This is not respective of working. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I mean, you mentioned the 3 photographers you mentioned earlier were primarily documentary photographers. Yes, for the most part. Someone like Irving Penn, who also worked in an editorial fashion, but was also very commercial. How, what one photograph would you pick for Irving Penn? I mean, he covered a lot of territory.
You're not going to wriggle out of this one, Mark.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick it, but I would ask him to pick it. I would have asked him to pick it.
Right.
It's not about us picking it for him. It's about him picking it for himself.
And he would only get one pick.
And he would only get one choice.
And again, at the end of his life, he would have flower photo, and in the beginning of his life, he would have picked a
but Mark, that's that sort of gives you the essence. I mean, you can dabble in five or six different genres. It doesn't
Right,
say you love them all equally. It
right.
could be that you've only really loved one, but you just didn't weren't able to do that effectively, so you did something else.
Hmm.
You did something else because you couldn't do one anymore.
Right.
You know, and so
Right,
it.
but then but if you can't do the one that you want to do, right? Since you brought this up, how do you select the one that you want to represent you if that image you feel hasn't really been created yet?
Oh, then it depends. If you're a newbie, if
Ah,
you're a newbie, I can accept it. But if you've
yeah,
been doing this for
we
10 years, I'm sorry.
or more.
There's no escaping. There's no
Yeah,
escaping.
yeah.
You
We
have
should.
the
I mean
ability.
that.
If you can't
Well, I
choose
mean,
one
I
image after 10 years, then you got to go back to editing school.
no, I think after 10 years it becomes more difficult because, as I mentioned to you guys offline before, I think the more photographs I create, the greater the variety of work that I produce, the more difficult it becomes for me to really try to extract for me more out of this process than I've done without repeating myself. And I think the problem is that most of us tend to sort of repeat ourselves, and then that becomes our
Studio.
style, that becomes
Well,
our genre. And and I think, if you had to pick one or the other, I mean, hey, if you get a photograph of someone
I
doing
disagree.
something at one event that that's fine.
Ooh,
It.
Mark.
I
But
don't know.
Mark, hey,
I,
Mark,
Yeah.
I don't know.
here's Mark.
It's,
I I can
And
I
the
can
in some ways, it's more easy to take a photograph today than
oh,
I mean,
the
Mark.
the technical
the
aspects are much easier, but really trying to find a way to express myself with a composition that I haven't already tried for myself. Not that hasn't been done, but one that I haven't tried is more difficult for me.
Then you're challenging yourself to perfectionism, aren't you?
I think that's one of the goals, isn't it? Not perfectionism, but to consistently improve on your skill set.
Maybe, but here, Mark, remember,
yeah.
I photographed in the photo studio as well, and I did my
Right,
own tests. And
right.
I can't remember an image that I'd like to use from them, although there are a couple of tests that I did that I wish I had access to that I can look at and ruminate over to think about it. Maybe I would have chosen those instead, but it's been so long since I photographed in that way that I just don't think
Would
that way
you
anymore.
say at this point in your life that if you had to choose the quintessential studio photograph, would it be the piano keys with the
Yes,
flower on it? Would that
yes,
be it? Or,
yes, yep,
okay,
that would be
now
it.
you see, that would be it, right? For
Yeah, that
you.
to
But
this
for
day,
me,
Mark. But Mark, to this day, that would be it.
right, but for me,
Ah,
there's these two photographs that I have kind of waiting, and I've been waiting for free time to actually do them, that I have kind of sketched out a little bit in my head about how there are two. Last month there was one, but now there's two. And to me, these two photographs are going to be the best that I have in this
Okay,
genre.
so you know that saying that when a photographer is asked, "What's the best picture he has ever
I
taken?"
haven't
and they
taken
say,
it yet.
"I haven't taken it yet." Mark is the quintessential person for that for that for that
Uh,
analogy. I
okay.
I mean,
haven't
I
I,
taken it
can't
yet.
I,
give you
I
one
can
for
see
each
that.
genre like it's the best done this thus far. I can say this is the one because this met the criteria of the intention of the photograph, the best. Not the best photograph I've ever created, but this met the intention best. This actually solved the visual problem I was trying to work
That
with.
that picture
And I
looks
get
like something that would be on like the the thing you give to people that come in for your wake. I didn't. It's a nice picture. I didn't care for it, but if you feel that was representative of you, then fine, great.
oh, me? Oh, yeah. I think oh, you mean like an obituary photo? I think that's appropriate in some regard. I mean, I would rather be known as a
That that
photographer
that, and you
rather than
didn't take the
known
picture, so I'm just saying.
for one specific image. I'd like to be known for a body of work that has different things for different
That
people.
wasn't the
But we could go on.
assignment. Get him, Kenny. Get
Right.
him.
Right. And Mark, in all honesty, no photographer would be known for just a single image. Like I said in the beginning,
Well,
you're going to be known for.
I think McCurry will be, and I think he
Yeah,
understands.
yeah.
Will be
His
known.
Afghan. You think he's going to be only known for his
Right.
Afghan girl?
I think when it's all said and done, that Afghan girl photo will be the one that everyone says that's him.
Well,
Some
yeah,
artists,
he can be identified by that photograph.
right? I
I mean,
mean,
it's gotten so
someone
much. It's
like
gotten so much press and
a painter like
notoriety.
Andy has the silk screens of Marilyn Monroe and the soup cans, and then that's really it. Everything else he's done, you have to be an aficionado either
So
of his work
Marlon
or someone's
Brando will
art.
only be known for The Godfather.
Godfather and maybe On the Waterfront.
No. You only get to pick one.
Well, but my point is that for many
We know
people,
your point. You're skirting his.
but
skirting his parameters.
but it's not. I'm not skirting the
Oh
parameters. What
boy.
I'm saying is,
Hey, because I came up with 4, and I was like, okay, I
right,
want these to show the different stages of my life, and
but
he said no.
right, but for some people, everyone will say, for some people, those people will say that Streetcar Named Desire is Marlon Brando's best movie,
Let it
and he just
go,
mumbles
let
his
it
way.
go.
God, there are people who will have those types of criticism.
There's something in my eye. Let it
Greg,
go.
Greg, let him
Let it.
finish, please.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, but you know what I mean, don't you? I mean, there are some critics who will say, well, he was acting in that movie. By the time he got to The Godfather and Last Tango, and got Superman, he was just collecting checks, that kind of thing is what people will say.
Yeah,
So
Superman was one of his best performances by far.
I don't know, but my point is that everyone has these works that are important to the canon of work that they do.
Boy, his connection is.
For them, and then they have the work that they're known by. And like I said, I'm sure.
We could really understand your point better if you stop breaking up.
Afghan girl photo. What's his name? Steve Wilkes will always be known for the day to night. Most likely
Edward Hopper and Nighthawks.
Okay, you know what, gentlemen, we're getting off topic, but also
always
these technical difficulties are really preventing us from having a really good conversation. So I'll just end it here. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again. We are the 3 Black Pratt grads. I'm Kenneth Nelson with Mark Skinner and Greg Cleghorn. We'll talk to you and see you soon next time. Thank you.
Ciao.